Welcome to this video for revisionworld.com for Revision World TV on studying Shakespeare's plays. In this video, I will talk about the types of Shakespeare play, the poetry and prose used by Shakespeare, Shakespeare's use of imagery, including his use of metaphors and similes, how Shakespeare opens and closes his plays, and how to study Shakespeare's characters. So let's start with looking at the types of Shakespeare's plays. It's important to know what type of play you are studying, as this will determine the types of questions you'll be asked and how you should answer those questions. There are 4 types of Shakespeare play. Tragedies. These plays focus on a tragic hero or couple whose downfall is brought on about through the weakness or misfortune of some kind. Tragedies end with the death of the central character, but also involves the death of a number of other characters. Examples of tragedies include Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, and King Lear. Comedies. This kind of play involves humour and often confusion, including disguise and mistaken identity. Unlike our modern idea of comedy, some of Shakespeare's comedies can be quite dark, but the main thing is they end happily and there are no deaths in the end. Examples of comedies include Much Ado About Nothing, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Twelfth Night, The Merchant of Venice, and The Taming of the Shrew. Histories. This kind of play is based on historical events and characters, often on kings or important figures in Roman history. These plays often have a tragic elements too. Famous Shakespeare history plays include Julius Caesar, Antony and Cleopatra, Henry IV Parts 1 and 2, and Henry V. Romances. These are some of Shakespeare's later plays, sometimes called last plays, and often involve magical worlds and happenings, mysterious events and moral lessons contained within a happy ending. Examples include The Winter's Tale and The Tempest. A small number of Shakespeare plays do not fit easily into these categories. These are plays that fall somewhere between tragedy and comedy and contain dark, unsettling elements, but which end happily. Insofar that no one dies, they are known as problem comedies or dark comedies. Now let's move on to the poetry and prose used in Shakespeare's plays. Shakespeare's plays are written mainly in poetic verse, but he does use some prose too. Prose is ordinary writing not organised with rhymes or fixed line lengths. The kind of verse form that Shakespeare uses is called blank verse. This kind of verse is the form of verse that is closest in rhythm to natural speech. This makes it the ideal form to use for dialogue. Blank verse is verse that does not rhyme and which is composed of lines called iambic pentameters. An iamb is an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. 5 iambs in a row make up a line of iambic pentameter. Pent means 5 in Greek. This means that each line has 10 syllables, 5 stressed and 5 unstressed, as in the line from Julius Caesar. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. However, Shakespeare may shorten lines to make them longer in order to express his meaning, or use enjambment, running on, where one line flows onto the next. Shakespeare's imagery involves the use of emotionally charged words and phrases, which create vivid pictures in the minds of readers or listeners. Shakespeare often includes metaphors and similes in his plays. A simile compares one thing to another, using like or as. For example, Juliet's words to Romeo. My bounty is as boundless as the sea, my love as deep. A metaphor is also a form of comparison, but instead of using like or as, it suggests that the thing is being described and the thing compared to it are the same. Donald Bain's warning to Brother Malcolm in Macbeth. There's daggers in men's smiles. Shakespeare often uses imagery to explore and add emphasis to a particular idea. In The Tempest, for example, Prospero compares the brief and temporary nature of the span of a human life with the nature of actors acting out a part in the theatre. The solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherit, shall dissolve. In Shakespeare's plays, there are often groups of images that are repeated and which build up a sense of the themes the play explores. In Othello, the evil Iago is frequently linked with the idea of hell through the imagery of the play. He swears by the divinity of hell. Now let's move on to look at how Shakespeare represents characters. Characters are the central feature in Shakespeare's plays, An important part of your studies will be to see how Shakespeare creates and presents his characters and how they function in the play. Shakespeare gives his audience an impression of the characters in the play in various ways. What the character looks like, physical appearance, clothing, etc. When a play is seen on stage, then much of this will be visual, although characters sometimes comment on other characters' appearance in the dialogue. Don't forget to look at the stage directions too when reading the text. You should also think about how the character acts. Watch out for the reaction to different situations. How a character's words match their actual deeds or their underlying motives. And what other characters say about another character and how a character changes as the play goes on. Also, think about what a character says and how it is said, and what the character thinks. Often we learn this from a character's soliloquies and asides. Shakespeare makes full use of dramatic devices, asides and soliloquies in his play as a means of revealing to the audience what's in the mind of a character. It is as if the character is speaking aloud to the audience and no one else on stage can hear them. Asides are usually quite short and are often spoken while other characters are on stage. For example, in The Merchant of Venice, Shakespeare reveals that Shylock hates Antonio and relishes the idea of getting a hold over him. Shakespeare uses aside here to reveal Shylock's true feelings and therefore increases dramatic tension. Shylock's speech starts, "How like a fawning publican he looks." Soliloquies tend to be longer and usually occur with no other characters on stage. Hamlet's soliloquy, "To be or not to be, that is the question, whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune." So let's move on to how Shakespeare opens and closes his plays. He uses a number of techniques to make the opening of his plays more effective. His plays often open in the middle of some kind of action. Something has just happened or is about to happen. Usually Shakespeare's plays open with minor characters speaking to describe to the audience the situation of what is happening or what has just happened. These characters often refer to a major character, although very often the main character does not appear until a little later in the play. Shakespeare also establishes a mood or atmosphere at the beginning of the play. The ending of any play is very important. It leaves the audience with a final impression of the drama they have just been watching. In order for the play to have a maximum impact, it is important that the ending is effective. Shakespeare ends his plays by developing the action of the play, which forms a natural conclusion, drawing together all the threads of the plot. Problems are resolved and confusions and conflicts that have been developed throughout the course of the action are cleared up. If you're looking for more information on how to study Shakespeare effectively, as well as revision notes on specific Shakespeare plays, then visit Revision World. I've put a link in the description of this video. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel Revision World TV, and check out some of our other videos. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.